All right, guys, welcome to Hard Rock Rewind, where we chat about all things 80s metal and hard rock. My name is Troy Barrett. My co-host is Dale Keating, and tonight we're going to be talking about when is it time to call it quits. Let's do it. All right, guys, so when is it time for a band or a singer or a performer to call it quits? I'm sure you've seen online, there's a lot of bands that are coming. A lot of, I guess, the bands that we're talking about that we love from the 80s are getting to a point now where they're getting into their, late 50s, 60s, 70s. And unfortunately, some just can't perform at probably the level that they were. And I guess, Dale, the question is, when, as maybe a listener, as a fan, or as a musician, a critic, I guess when do you think it's time to maybe call it, or even from your experience, when would you say, I'm not going to pay money to see my favourite band anymore? When do you call it stops?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a very difficult, there's a nuanced position in there somewhere. I don't know that we're going to get to that. But yeah. I think as a listener, I think for me, there have been times with bands where they're kind of, as I transitioned out of a certain style of music into another style of music, listening wise, I think there are even albums that some of these bands have put out that I perhaps haven't listened to, or haven't been interested in listening to, and not because they're not great albums. I'm sure some of them are really good albums, but I think I had entered a different phase of my life as well. And so I think as a listener, I think a lot of people go through that. And so I think for people who are like that, I think you probably stop paying money to see these people as your, what you enjoy listening to changes, right? Yeah. But then you have absolute diehard fans that, will go to every concert as it rolls through town, and they've got all the merch, they've got all the albums, they've had everything signed like a billion times, they pay for all the meet and greets. And so for those people, it's, is it doing them a disservice or an injustice, when they're paying their money to come and see a show, and perhaps it's falling a little short? And I would say, does it even matter to those people? Those people attending those concerts in that headspace who absolutely love that band, is that the worst thing in the world for them? Are they going for the experience of being in that band's orbit again? Or are they going because they're a massive music critic and they want to analyze every single note? Oh, he fluffed that note, man, he's no good anymore, he doesn't have it. Or, are they that type of person? So I guess it depends on the type of listener that you are. It's a really tough one, man. I don't know I have the answer to that, but there are so many different takes. That's just I guess one thing. I mean, me as a listener transitioning into other genres, I probably stopped attending gigs for a lot of those bands a while back. But yeah, the diehards, is it
as in 80s metal bands?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to I don't want to mention bands and so forth, but there are bands that I absolutely loved. I grew up with the 80s, and I can still put their albums on, and I get taken back there. But then others, I put them on, and the production it's just not what my ears are used to hearing anymore, and so I find it really a real difficult listen sometimes. And so if it's like that, I'm like, it's not making me feel the way it used to make me feel, so I probably don't want to go see them live because I'm not going to feel that energy that I used to feel from that band anymore. So I guess I'm interested on your take. Is it, are the real diehards who go to see these bands, are they, do you think they're walking away feeling ripped off?
Yeah, so there's two kind of points I'd like to chat on. So one, look, I guess as a caveat, we're not here to we're not millionaires that have sold, platinum selling records. So by no means are we here to sort of criticize any of these artists or bands. But in the same realm, it is an interesting one when you've come from, you're in bands, especially in metal or hard rock, and there's a certain proficiency you need to keep up, either playing guitar or your instruments, your voice, whatever it may be. And I think if you're honest about where you are and with your audience, I think there's like a moral sort of standard you have to sort of come to. At what point is it right to keep charging people to come see you if you're only really pulling off 60%? Two things I want to mention. So I'll give you one example. So I saw a band, a very well-known metal band, not 80s, under the 80s metal glam sort of band, but a well-known metal band many years ago at Soundwave Metal Festival in Australia. Might have been 2010 or 11 or something, maybe 12, something like that.
Don't go
very
check
well
the
known.
lineup.
Go. Yeah. And so I've seen this band a couple of times before. Amazing. And this time, to be honest, I couldn't fault them playing live, but there was just that X factor about them that just wasn't there. And I remember 4 songs in, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to go, because I think now if I stay anymore, it's not that they played really bad or anything. They weren't playing bad, but whatever that X factor, that excitement factor that they had previously when I'd seen them, just wasn't there. It was just really clear to me that it wasn't there. And I'm sure everyone else was maybe loving it, but from my perspective, it wasn't there. And I just decided to walk. And after that, I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to see that band ever again, because I don't want their future performances to ruin my memory. And there's been another popular singer from the 80s, a hard rock singer, who's the same. Still sounds great for his age, but I've seen, last time I saw him was like early, mid 2000s, maybe late 2000s. And once again, I've seen him online, and just that, I don't know what it is. It's that X factor about them has just left. And for me, I just don't want to go again to kind of, I'd rather just keep my memories from when I loved them, when I used to listen to them and the earlier concerts, because I think that would just ruin that for me. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had that scenario happen at all?
I think literally, going back to what I said earlier, just about, and so I question what you said. Like, is it? Do you think that they didn't put on a performance that kind of blew you away, or do you think that you had changed? Like, other external musical influences had since come in, and so your ears were open to different sounds and different production and a different look and a different vibe and an image that you were vibing off, and you would get like leaning heavily into that. And so now when you see this band, and they could have been actually performing better than a previous time that you saw them, but you just weren't on board with it anymore, perhaps. So it could be that, or it could be that, they're just not, there's just something missing. And maybe they put on a little bit more weight, maybe they're looking a bit older, maybe they're not moving as much as they used to. Maybe the energy in the performance isn't there anymore, so you're just like, you just feel a bit kind of off about it. So I'd be curious to see what you think about that. Do you think that they had changed and dropped the ball a little bit and probably had missed a step, or do you think it was more so your perception of that kind of music in that band at that time, where you'd been kind of bombarded with new ideas?
That's a good point. Because I mean, for example, so at the time, let's say it was 2012, it was around that sort of time. So at that time, I probably would have been listening to more newer rock metal bands, probably higher level of guitar. Not that theirs isn't, but as the years have gone by, there's been more and more, more better guitar players and more crazy riffs that's getting written. So maybe my musical mind is kind of in a new place, and maybe that just isn't as exciting to my ear anymore. You know what I mean? Although I will still potentially listen to them on Spotify, but live, for whatever reason, it doesn't carry over to their live performance. And I guess the other one that I was just mentioning before is that, like we were talking off just before we recorded this. So Winger are currently doing their farewell tour, right? And I saw an interview with Red Beach talking about why they're finishing. And fair enough, like Kit Winger he's writing to his classical music now. He's really in that, and I think that's where he wants to go. But Red was saying that, some of the vocal parts now for him being quite challenging at his age, and he wants to call it while they're still at a pretty high level of performance. And he was saying though that like Kip, that's how Kip thinks of his performance. But Reb says, dude, like you're hitting like maybe two semi-flat notes out of 1,000 of a night, but I guess Kip's standards are very high, and so he wants to call it, which is really admirable. Like, I think that's amazing. Like, call it when you're on top. But on the other hand, there are a lot of bands at the moment. We're not going to name them, but I'm pretty sure the people who watch this show will know. There's definitely a major band that's getting around on a huge tour at the moment, or that has been, and there's been some controversy about having backing tracks, and the live vocals just are very questionable. And I think, like, at what point do you? I mean, is it a matter of fact? Is it a matter of the people that surround some of these bands or artists? Are they just yes men? That because they're getting employed at such a huge. It's like when Bon Jovi, like when he was, maybe 2 years ago, there was all this stuff online about his voice. It was cooked, and you're going, man, it's pretty hard to go out there and and expect people to pay if you're going to be singing like that. Obviously, when we saw the doco, it wasn't as he didn't know that at the time. But you've got these big bands that have these employees. There's a lot of pressure to keep the money rolling in. But at the same time, like, ethically, if you're objective, how can you, I think that you've got to weigh up and say, am I still able to charge these fans, $100 a ticket or more to see me where I can only sing 45% of what I used to sing 10 years ago? Yeah. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, look, I think that, yes. I think the answer is yes. You can 100% do that. Because, like, people's eyes have been open, right? We have so much access to information nowadays that we didn't have access to back in the day. And it's, like, I would say 70% of people going to these shows are aware. Like, they've seen stuff online. Like, they're all aware of it. But there's something about that band being in that space and being in that environment with that band on that night that makes them feel good about themselves, whether the band's hitting everything spot on or they're actually really kind of shitting the bed, so to speak. It's still, but just something about being, again, like I said, in their orbit for that one night. And these are people that probably grew up with that band, and that band's been with them their whole life. So for them, they're happy to hand over their money. So I think as long as people are happy to pay these ticket prices, knowing what they're kind of getting themselves in for, I think bands are gonna keep charging it. Because, and again, like, who's to tell somebody to stop making a living off something they love doing, right? If you're a band and that's what you've done, that's all you've known your whole life, and you're used to a certain standard of living that being in a band affords you, who's to tell you to stop if people are willing to pay money? I don't know. It's my take on that, I think.
No, yeah. You're totally right. You're probably right. I absolutely see that point. It is. It's maybe it's because we're musos, and maybe because musos maybe are a bit more anal about that stuff, and the general public who just love music but aren't musicians, maybe they don't care. Maybe it's just me or you or other musos that you see online that are commenting about this sort of stuff are musicians, and maybe they're just more sensitive to this. But there was a point that I was going to that you just mentioned there that was quite interesting.
Dude, I got
that'll come back to me.
I hate
Well, I guess.
Sorry, I just had to pick one up. I just dropped one. Just had to drop it.
Well, there was. I guess one of the other points is also, aside from the live stuff, you're right. Who are we to tell a band stop doing what you love doing? You know what I mean? Because if I was in their position, it'd be hard for me or us if we're in a band together still playing. Yeah, you want to keep doing it because you love it. But for me as a listener, I don't know if you're watching this, let us know in the comments. But there are definitely some bands now that still, or from the past, that still record new music, and I totally get they want to be creative. But there are some bands I feel now that are in jeopardy of that they've almost put out music that's, I don't want to say subpar, but it's just not what they're used to. But they're at a point now where they're tilting to having more newer stuff that's subpar to their old stuff that they're known for. You know what I mean? If they had 4 classic albums, but they've gone on to record another 6, they've got these 6 albums now that are kind of just, but they're also going to, I don't know. It's that. What's that mean for their legacy, or do we not care? And it's just, I guess it's up to them. It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's super tough. I mean, like we could talk for ages about that. I just, yeah, it's so hard because look, creative people want to be creative and let them be creative in whatever medium they want to be creative in. So and that's what they know, and yeah, so do it. And they probably don't care. Like they probably think that riff they wrote was a killer riff, and then put some parts to it. Oh man, that's a sick song. That's probably the best song we've written since '87. And so they put that out there, and whether we think it's that or not is probably, I mean, it's irrelevant to them. I'll tell you that. Like they don't really care. They're probably at the point where they don't really care about reviews, and they're almost using that new album as a vehicle to continue touring. So
Yeah.
like they probably, I mean, some people are probably still super passionate about their art and their craft and the music they put out, and others are probably just again looking at that as a way to, all right, let's ramp up a new tour, let's get some new merch with the new album cover on it, and we're sweet for another year and a half, 2 years, and then we're going to do it all again. And so and some bands are probably cyclic like that, and that's what they do. Again, like more power to the people that buy that stuff and are into it. Good on them, and the bands are happy to put that out, and you're happy to buy it, and that's cool. But that's potentially why a lot of their audience drops off and moves into different areas. But again, people's tastes change as well. Like my tastes have changed so much. Oh, like I don't want to say so much. Like the music I still listen to is still heavy guitar driven, melodic and harmonies and all that kind of stuff. It's just not what it was then, because music's not what it was then. So yeah, it's very interesting, dude. Like that's a tough one. Like, what do you do? Like, like if I went to see a show, if I knowingly went to see a show and I knew that they were cooked and they couldn't do it, but I just wanted to be there because it was their last show, or it was, or there was something that I deemed special about being at that show, it wouldn't bother me because I'd go in with transparency about that. If I had no idea and I paid money, then that's a different story. But I think in this day and age, people going in blind, not knowing about that, are probably fewer and further between, perhaps.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Pretty naive. Like most people now would have probably watched, heaps of live content of the bands that they're probably going to see. I mean, for example, we're going to see, my wife and I are going to see The Used coming up when they tour Australia. And my wife's been watching like YouTube videos of them live on this tour ad nauseum. So we definitely know like what we're up for. So yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
What are you trying to say?
No, they're great. They're fantastic. He still sounds great. I'm still happy to fork over my money. Yeah.
Because it's an experience.
Awesome. Good chat, man. Well, no, you're right.
It's an experience. Yeah, it's an experience. And so, fuck it. Yeah, we used to love The Used. They're touring. Yeah, let's go see The Used. And you know what? It only ever needs to be as simple as that.
Yeah, totally. All right, guys. Well, we're going to leave it there. Let us know in the comments, what do you guys think? Be very, very keen to hear your thoughts. Thank you for tuning. Like always, if you're liking the content, please consider subscribing. We're going to be trying to pump out as much content for you guys as possible. Dale, thanks so much for talking, brother. And we'll catch you guys soon on the next video. Have a good time. Chat to you soon.
Rewind.